Hi, welcome to TELUS STORYHIVE On Location, Vernon. I'm Robb, and we're live in Salmon Arm with another incredibly inspiring episode brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. Today we're sitting with Lowell Friesen, a incredibly talented ceramics artist and musician and creative genius behind me, and we're going to follow into his process and see how he goes about his work with these magical pieces. Lowell, how you doing?
Not too shabby. How about
Thanks for
yourselves?
having us.
Thanks for coming.
I'd shake your hand, but you're deep into painting or
Yep.
glazing right now.
I am.
So let's start off with who you are and how you got into being a ceramics artist.
How I got into it. All right. Well, you know my name, Lowell Friesen. I been doing ceramics for about 13 years, and I started kind of randomly. Actually, I've always been creative. Always been making stuff. I went to art school and wanted to be a painter, and worked in music for a while and made some records. When I got into ceramics, I was in Vernon and at a bit of a low point in my life, and I walked into the art center there and I said, give me something to do. I'm going a little bit crazy. And they said, well, have you ever thought about pottery? And I said, not even once. Sign me up. So I took a little intro class, and I fell in love immediately. As soon as I had something centered on the wheel for the first time, I felt a sensation in the body that I had been sort of looking for in meditation classes and all sorts of things that I could just barely touch. But with clay, I seemed to find it quite naturally. So I was hooked. And so I played at the art center there for many years before making my own space, and sort of the rest is history. But I got to give the shout out to the community art centers, because not only did they provide me with the space to deal with my issues at the time, they also provided me with what I didn't know at the time would be my livelihood. So shout out to community art spaces. We need those in our communities.
That's a really cool story. That's not how I expected to hear that, how you got into it. That's super cool.
It hadn't crossed my mind, really. Like I said, I'd been to art school. Wanted to be a Renaissance painter. So after a couple of years of art school, I realized I was in the wrong century, and quit art school to play in bands and tried that for a while. But yeah, ceramics kind of came serendipitously.
It's kind of a mind-blowing art form too. As like a musician, you usually will gravitate towards. I find most musicians gravitate towards like film and video because it transcends that music bridge. Still, they can still work with the music and still kind of be relatively involved with it. So they get into filmmaking and whatnot. But to hop into ceramics is like, it's always been an art form that has amazed me. So I find it intriguing that you decided one day just to pick up ceramics and it became your livelihood.
Well, and initially too, when I started working with it, I thought that it would be a really excellent balancing point to music, because I was really into music at the time, and like I said, I was making some records and touring, and that was my main focus. But I'm not 100% extroverted, so the time on stage and touring was exhausting in a way that I thought ceramics would be a nice balancing side to it, because it's completely the opposite. I'm alone in my studio, it's introverted, I got my hands in the mud. There's no performance aspect to it whatsoever. So I thought it would be a nice balance to do the two of them together. And then COVID came along and kind of took the wind out of the sails for music, and this was taking off, so I sort of just embraced that path instead.
So you mentioned before that you've been doing it for 13 years, but relatively, as you would say, quote unquote, professionally as your livelihood for 4.
Yes.
How hard was that transition to go from this is what I'm doing as a hobby to I can live off this?
Well, it took a long time. Like I said, this is my 13th year and only the 4th doing it full time. So I had 9 years to sort of prepare for it. I knew pretty quickly that it was going to be a part of my livelihood. I didn't know how, but So I spent quite a few years, working sort of part-time and when I could, and slowly building my studio space up. And then when I moved to Salmon Arm, I basically looked for a shop that I could build my business and go from there.
Love it. I find that that's why I enjoy speaking with creatives, because we tend to follow one path at a young age. For us, it was music. And then we find down the road that music ends up being this, we were talking before, it's a massively complicated relationship with you and 4 to 5 other beings creating this beautiful thing that is yours, essentially, but there's a lot of emotions that go with it.
Right.
So I find a lot of musicians who are creative tend to dive into solo art forms like painting, or
To balance it out.
yeah, and to see that that's how you did it, that's where I'm kind of at. Is like I'm trying to figure out what art form I would like to dive into. For me, it was photography. That ability to just stop, be in the moment, and like not worry about the future or the past. It's just, where am I right now, and capture that moment. That stillness is beautiful for the mind.
Right. Essential.
When you're going over your art and creating, because you have a bunch of different styles. There's skulls, there's mushrooms, there's strawberries. What draws you to choosing these specific images to put on them? Because you can do whatever you want, but I find that ceramics artists always seem to find their trademarks.
Right. So I guess creativity in general for me has been a form of therapy, right? It's a form of processing your experience, and at the end of the day, you have some output after the process happens. And I find that a lot of that process is subconscious, and it happens while your hands are working. And some of the images that I work with, I don't really notice until afterwards. Like the two of my bigger lines that I do are these strawberries and these chickens. And I spent a good part of my life on a farm that had mostly strawberries and chickens. And I guess I can't totally let that part of me go. But in that experience of living and working on a family farm and running a family business, there was a lot of stuff I had to process in moving through it. And so subconsciously, I think I'm working through that stuff while I'm working with those images. And then the skulls and the mushrooms, that's sort of, our preoccupation with death. Also a nod to my skateboarding years, where the skull was sort of a very, very prominent symbol in a lot of things. And the mushroom, we can talk about paths to other worlds in another conversation if we want. But that's also, pretty important to my creative journey.
I love these ones that look like cauldrons.
Right. I call them skuldrons.
Is that what you went for? I love that. That is so perfect. That is like my ideal coffee cup right there. I'm like, I love the way that you have the skull popping out of it too, and the thumb holster.
Right.
Like that fact that you think of that, like on the finished pieces, you see it as well, and it's, for me, it's like those little intricacies that you add to it really make a coffee cup a special cup. And that's where, when we're speaking with Molly, like, she looks to build something that someone's like, I want to wash this so I can drink out of it tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what I get from your pieces, especially like the newer one that you were showing us off camera, where it's got this beautiful blue glaze to it. Like when you're glazing, like, I guess, how do I phrase this? When you're choosing to choose what parts are glazed, because that's all done with a paint kind of aspect, right? Like you're painting how much of that is getting the glazing. How do you go about choosing that? Is it just strictly by the way it looks? Like, oh, that looks visually good? Or is there a specific, like a mathematical equation to how much can be glazed on a piece? Or
there's a lot of math and there's a lot of chemistry, and both of those things, as essential as they are to the process, are not my forte. For me, it's a little bit more chaotic, and I have a lot of, in the process of finding a glaze that I like, there's a lot of mistakes made and lots of trials and errors and testing things and whatnot. There is, some technical what's the word? Rules that you have to follow. The biggest one is that you want your glaze to have a good fit to the clay that it's on, so that it vitrifies properly in the kiln, so that you actually have a food safe vessel that you can drink your coffee out of.
Okay.
So you always have to keep that in mind, which is also part of the testing, finding the right fit. After that, it's pretty much it's your aesthetic, right? So I do the chickens in kind of a farmhouse blue. I do the strawberries in a sort of whitish gray that just kind of balances nicely with the strawberries. The skulls and the mushrooms are usually in a black, kind of fitting, I suppose. But yeah, other than that, I just want to make sure that the glaze is stable and it doesn't, because it turns to glass in the kiln, right? At whatever 2,000 odd degrees. And if you have it wrong, that can run in the kiln, and you have basically liquid glass run over everything, and it all sticks together, and you have very expensive, messy accidents to clean up.
Now, how would you go about it? Do you have to break it because it's glass, or do you just heat it up?
No, you chip it off and grind and sand and
so much work, yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And that's the thing too, right? Like most people, they'll look at a coffee cup and they're like, oh, that's beautiful, but don't realize how much work goes into it.
Right.
And that's where I really appreciate ceramics. I'm finally getting this year to sit down with artists who work on ceramics and getting to hear that it's not just kind of a thing and then, oh, it's done, put it in the kiln. Like, there is so much process that goes into it.
Right.
Like even right now, you're doing a second glaze on the strawberries and the other things. That glaze is what's going to pop out, but what color, like when do you put the glaze on the rest of it? Is that after the strawberries have dried?
I do this first just because it's easier to handle before it's dipped.
Okay.
So yeah, these strawberries get 2 coats of underglaze, and then I paint a brush-on glaze over them, and then I'll dip the rest into a dippable glaze.
Do you have to cover the strawberries when you're dipping?
No, so I can show you a little piece here.
Yeah, because the process is okay. So stunning.
You can see when I dip it, I'll just hold it like this and dip it into the...
Oh, okay.
Right, so this is actually just the raw clay. And I choose the clays I use by what they look like raw, and I love this dark clay, right? It's such a great contrast to the strawberries and the glaze itself.
Is there a different price between clays?
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. There's a huge variety.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like you never think about that when you're looking at the pieces, right? Like, what is this one made for? Because I noticed it has holes on the side. Is that for like incense?
It's a garlic keeper.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's actually a really cool concept. I like that. And you have square ones over here. Is that for like butter? The rectangle ones? Those are so cool. Yeah. The texture on one of them is like mind blowing. How do you go about doing that texture?
Oh, this...
Is that all just like hand done? When you're like pressing specific, yes, that one.
This one here.
Because that is like, that, it intimidates me. Because it's like, oh, it's fragile. They're all fragile, right?
So this one is actually a hand-built piece. So I use this table here to roll out a slab. So it's basically like a sheet roller. Okay. And you roll out these flat pieces that you can cut and attach. And then to get this texture in, it's actually, this one is a doily that my mom made. And I roll it with a pin into the clay, and that creates that texture. And you can see the pattern of the doily in it.
That's so cool, though. Do you use a lot of different like upcycled things to make patterns? Or is that kind of one of the only ones you were like, this will work?
I'm always looking for different things for texture. I love texture. So like when I like the mushrooms and the chickens and all that stuff, that's all stamps because they add that texture, right?
Yeah.
So I have one that's just kind of a fancy doorknob I found that I really like the little filigree design in that I use, and someone gave me a little bee pendant that looks really nice indented into clay.
That's so cool. Is there a challenge from doing indented to having it protrude out like the skulls?
Two very different things actually. Putting the stamps in is actually the trickiest because you have to do it when the clay is wet, and then you have to be able to get into the vessel to brace it to put the stamp in. So very often you get a little misshapen end piece. So you have to do it very carefully and at exactly the right time. Otherwise, it's too hard and the stamp won't go in, or it's too soft and you squish the thing. With these ones, okay, I'll give away a secret. The skulls, it's actually a fondant mold for cake decorating.
Okay.
So you just put a little bit of clay in there, and then you can attach it on the outside. They're a little bit easier to attach because the pot can be a little bit firmer before it's attached. So not quite as much risk of deforming the pot.
Stamping.
Yeah.
You don't even think about that. You think that building off of it would be harder, and taking away would be easier. But that does make sense when you break it down logically, right?
Yeah.
That's where I mean, like, getting to speak with somebody who knows what they're doing with clay is, it changes people's perspectives, because instantly now people are appreciating, oh, that coffee cup that I drank out of yesterday was handmade. I never really gave it the time of day that it deserves.
Right.
So that's where it's kind of like beautiful. And there was these pieces right here. There's something that I noticed when looking at it that I absolutely love that I haven't seen another artist do, and that's the holes inside and of the mouthpiece.
Oh, so that you can put your dry tea directly into there.
Right,
Yeah.
and that to me is like, you're having to embrace that on the inside of the spout, and then poke the holes in before, right? Like,
I remember the first time I came onto that problem, I was like, oh, how do I do this? Because I'd actually had a curved spout. I'm like, I can't actually get in there to poke the holes in.
And that's the one thing too, is people don't. When we were speaking with Molly, and she showed us her teapot that she had done, and I instantly was like, that's multiple pieces. After speaking to her, I mean, I was like, how do you go about putting multiple pieces together, right? Like,
so the teapot is actually, I found it's like the end boss of the pottery game, because you have to have a lid that fits right, you have to have a handle that feels good, you have to have a spout that won't dribble terribly. So my challenge to myself this year was because I've been putting it off, is to make a teapot that actually does all those things. And so these are some of my first experiments with it, and I'm still trying to get it down.
I love the little intricacies on your pieces. How you have these cutouts and little pieces that are missing and holes, and like, it just adds such a beautiful element to it. Is that just time, or is that something you just chose to do over time?
I mean, so they're for a purpose, right? The ones with the carved out pieces are yarn bowls.
Okay.
So for knitters, so you put the bowl of yarn in there, and then you run
the yarn would come out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then those are ramen bowls, right? So you put your chopsticks in the little holders there.
That is so cool. See, I love that you're thinking on different levels, where most people are just like coffee cups and bowls. And they're like, no, I'm doing teapots, and like, you've got garlic holders and yarn bowls. Is there specific things that you would love to do, but they're maybe tricky at this point to hit?
Like I said, the teapot is the challenge this year for sure, as far as functional stuff goes. I would like to have an extra few hours in the day so that I could play around a little bit more with just sculptural stuff and do more just like fully expressive and not worry so much about function.
Have you done sculptures before?
I played around a little bit. Yeah.
That must be difficult, because it's not, I mean, it'd be easy because it's not food safe, but like when we were speaking with Andrea, sometimes the scale gets a little too big for your kiln, and then you have to do it in multiple pieces, and then how do you go about that? Right, because that's itself as a whole
set of challenges.
Yeah, and sculptures are, for me, that would be really intimidating. Like, you can get good creating perfectly round bowls and things like that, but to push it to a level where you're like you said, you're being expressive and you're creating this whole new entity and being that hasn't been done before. You're kind of like creating the rules that make it.
Yeah, totally.
Right, and that's where I really love ceramics, because we look back in history at where we first started in Mesopotamia. Even prior to that, we had ceramics realistically, but we were talking prior, and it's like, you've seen these historical pieces. And the skill set that's there that's not primitive. And that's kind of like, how do modern day ceramics artists work against like ancient ones? You know what I mean? Like the techniques, the styles, because we have all these skills and tools and technology that we can use to advance, but they didn't even have wheels that we know of. Some of them. So it's like, it's kind of mind blowing to think about. And it's like, where music, like kind of where I can relate pottery to music, is like, it's ever evolving, and you're never really fully going to understand the theory behind it, because it's always changing, right? Like music theory, you can understand it as much as you want. But when it comes to actually writing it, that theory goes out the window.
Right.
Kind of how I see ceramics. You can understand the basics, but you have to understand structural ability. But then every piece is different. So you're always constantly molding to the piece and how it works. Are there specific styles that you steer clear of because they're maybe difficult? Like are vases a challenge in versus like cups and stuff, which is our bigger scale?
Right. Yeah, some of the bigger pieces I definitely stay away from because they're super challenging. I look like I should be able to throw big pieces of clay, but I'm not at that level yet. You see some of these people throwing, 20 pounds of clay at a time, and it's mind-boggling how easy they make it look.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly scaling up.
Well, I mean, some of the pieces you have are relatively big, though. Like this bowl right here is not. I feel like that would be a difficult thing to do.
That was probably 5 pounds when it started.
That's crazy. So how much actually comes off when you're working on it? Does any come off of it? Like when you're...
Oh, a lot of it comes off. When you're throwing, lots of it comes off in the sort of slurry that gets put into a bucket. And then it dries a little bit, and then I trim it, and you end up with these trimmings. I'll dry out the trimmings, and I'll add it to that slurry, and I'll blend it up, and then dry it out on those racks over there.
Okay.
And then I can reuse the clay.
Oh,
But
cool.
a lot of it comes off. And everybody throws a little bit different. There are some people that can throw so precisely that they hardly have to trim. There's some people who trim heavily, which I'm on the trim heavily side of things.
I don't think that seems like a bad thing. That's why I like that, hearing different people's perspectives, because like you trim. I didn't see Molly trim, and Andrea has like this weird style. So like the three of you all have a different style and a different like mindset on it. And it's kind of like, as a person who's always wanted to touch and do ceramics, because it is something that is very like primitive. Like music is primitive to us, painting is primitive to us, and ceramics are primitive to us. Most other art forms we didn't have until down the road. But like cavemen, we drew on walls, we built ceramics, and we banged on drums. So for me, those are like the three most like to our core of human beings, of being artistic. Like what we've created since the dawn of time is those three art forms. And I find that if you can understand the history behind it, which a lot of people don't fully understand the history behind music or like even painting. They don't realize how much history goes into it, or the history that is behind ceramics, because to understand the art form, you have to understand the history behind it. That's why I like tattoo artists where they're like, I didn't even get to touch a tattoo gun until I understood the history and the culture. And I feel like that's one thing that's lacking nowadays, because anyone can just go to YouTube and pick up how to learn a style of art. They're missing that like natural discipline that we're supposed to learn and appreciate and work with. We're supposed to make our failures, and we're supposed to write a terrible song so that when we look back 20 years later, we're like, oh God, that's cringy.
Right.
But it was the first thing that led me to writing. So it's kind of like the first piece.
I shouldn't have put those on the first record.
Yeah, right? Or like the first ceramic piece you make. You're going to always look at it like, I could have done better, but that's the starting point.
Right.
And it's like, you just needed to start. And that's why I love speaking with people who are like, oh, I started what is now my livelihood way later in life than I probably should have. But that is an ongoing story through our series, as I find like 35 to 50 is where people are picking their dreams and running with it and becoming successful.
Right.
Do you think that you're ever going to get to a point where you're going to change up what you're doing and maybe go in a different direction with clay?
It might not be with clay, but it will definitely change direction. It's always changing direction, right? Like I said, I started in grade 8. I knew I was going to go to art school because I really loved. I was really infatuated with Emily Carr's paintings of West Coast art, and that led me to Coast Salish First Nations art, which I loved, and then I found the Book of Duro and fell in love with Celtic art, and I just really wanted to go to art school. I had this sort of ancient idea, like I'd be this Renaissance painter kind of, right? So I went to art school, but that didn't, that led me to music, and so I quit art school to join a band, and then played in bands for a while, and then I wanted to focus on writing, so I quit the band and went back to school to write, and then in writing I realized that I actually wanted to write songs again, so I went back to music, and then like it's always changing.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing I find is Most creatives can't stick to one medium. Like you'll never see a musician
why
who
would
sticks
you?
to being
Why
a musician,
would
right?
you? Yeah.
No, that's one thing is like I find that I gravitate towards, unfortunately, digital art because I enjoy doing like graphic design, video and stuff. But I feel like I really want to push myself to get in tune with something that's natural and like historical, like whether it be working on clay or like so many other art forms. Like painting is one that really intimidates me because I know I suck at it. And everyone's like, well, you're always, you start off and you're bad at it. But I'm like, no, I'm really bad at it. So I'd love to learn how to get like better at it because that is one that is really like, has always eluded me. It's just how people can take something from their mind, put it onto paper, and it looks amazing. And it doesn't matter how many creatives I speak with, I'll never fully understand that concept. So for me, it's like diving into something along this medium would be more.
A lot of that though is just practice. I mean, there are people who have natural gifts for sure, but I think the majority of successful artists are people that either have an obsession or a work ethic that makes them practice, that drives them to keep trying things, right? Like I'm 13 years into this and I am barely beginning. You know, like a lot of the pieces that come out of what I make, I'm like, this is, someone in grade 4 could make this. This is terrible, right? So like, always beginning and always feeling like you could be doing better, or this isn't good enough, or this is hideous. I don't want anybody to see this, right? And then you bring one of those pieces out just for fun, and it's the first piece that sells at a sale because somebody loved it, and you're like, whoa, why'd you love that? That's ridiculous.
Do you find that the pieces that you think aren't going to sell tend to sell the most because it's your biggest critic, so you can't see the beauty that's there because you're naturally going to see the flaws?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I find is a common theme with creative people is we're our biggest hindrance in becoming successful.
Right.
And it's the moment that we're like, you know what, and you just let go, that it tends to take off. And I find that that's a reoccurring story with everyone that I've spoken with in the last 2 years that is creative, because to take something that you are passionate about and build it into a career and a lifestyle is not what we're taught to do. You know what I mean? Like you have to learn those mistakes and make those mistakes, and those mistakes is what's going to make people thrive or run and tuck tail.
Right.
And that's where I think getting to meet people who have made this their livelihood, like you've now you're doing it 4 years in, right? And then this is what you do for a job.
Right.
That's an amazing thing.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and some other artists out there might hate me for saying this, but I think that the reality is what artists do isn't actually anything special. I think creativity is human nature at its core. Everybody, go to a kindergarten class and tell me any of those kids can't paint. You know, like the younger we are, the closer we are to that creative energy. And unfortunately, we live in a system that corrals us into this feedlot of capitalism. And we're all afraid because if we don't work hard enough, we are unworthy of food and shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And so that drives us to, we have to be cogs in the wheel or we're going to be homeless. And there's not a lot of people who choose that on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the difference between an artist and anybody else is simply stubbornness, to not be as much of a cog as the next person. We're all cogs. I'm a cog. Like, I'm making art for a living, but I still have to pay my taxes and I have bills to pay, and I have to hustle goods and go sell my stuff. But I do it as much on my terms as possible, and that's just being stubborn.
I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's being stubborn. It's putting a value on you and what you're not willing to do and give up to make it. And I think that is more valuable at the end of the day than somebody who's willing to just do anything to make it. You know? For
sure. And that being said, almost anything you do can be a creative practice, right? Like I met someone who designed and built septic systems, and they were so passionate about it. They were excited about the fact that every build was a different They had different elements to work with, like the soil structure was different, so they had to use different materials. They had to design, and they were really excited about it. And I was like, "You are as much of an artist as anyone painting something in New York City." So anything you do can be part of the creative process. It's when you just kind of give up on, I just got to pay the bills, and you zombie off to your 9 to 5, whatever.
I think you just made a very valuable point that could change a lot of people's perspective. And that's that even if you are doing the basic boring 9 to 5, like you're a carpenter, there's art there.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Don't look at it like, oh, I got to go do my job. Like, that's why I hated being a carpenter. I love working with wood as a hobby. It's one of my favorite things to do. But you put me on a job site to build a house, and I'm the most miserable person on the planet. Right. I do not like it. Right. And it's just because it is that I'm looking at it as a job and not like, oh, I'm building a house. This is art. Like, if I would have looked at it that way, probably would have appreciated carpentry a lot more. I looked at concrete that way because it was kind of that, you have to be, when you're finishing concrete, there's an art to it.
Absolutely.
There's a beautiful art form to it. And you have to like be perfectly troweled and like things like that I fell in love with because like that art was artistic to me. But I don't think I ever should have met you a couple years ago when because I probably would still be doing carpentry. When you first initially dove into pottery from music, what was the biggest hurdle for you to overcome?
When I first started, I felt like I didn't really have much of a choice. Like I said, COVID hit, and I had in that 1 week, I got 30 emails canceling my next tour, basically one after the other. So I didn't really have much of a choice, and here was a creative thing that I was doing that was, I couldn't keep up as it was. So it was pretty easy to embrace this, and shift gears.
Were you touring full time prior?
Before COVID, yeah.
What band were you with?
Just solo.
Okay, so you're just acoustic solo artist?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not an easy gig.
No, I often found myself like you said, people between 35 and 50 is when it hit, and I was 40 when I fully committed and said, okay, I went on tour for the first time at 40, and I remember sleeping on a pub floor in New Brunswick somewhere, going, why didn't I do this when I was 20? This is ridiculous. I'm exhausted. This is brutal.
Yeah, people don't realize everyone loves the rock star glam life when they're looking at it from the outside. No one understands the sleeping in the car for 1 hour while you drove 18 hours. You get
an hour and a half on stage, and the rest is pure
hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not eating healthy. You're not going to the bathroom. You're not showering. There's a lot that goes to touring that people don't fully apprehend. And then they're like, I don't want to pay $10 to go to your show.
Right.
And you're like, bro, I just drove 3 days straight to come perform for you. Right. Like, you could pay $10 to come and see a show. And that's where I think myself as a musician, I had to like step away from music because I was starting to lose that love for it. Right. And this job has given me the ability to meet so many different creative people and different respective disciplines that I've kind of like, my entire mentality has changed to being like, I just want to write solo music for myself, put it out, but I don't think I'm ever going to go on the road again.
Right.
If I do, it'll be for a big tour that is like, oh, we're opening up for somebody. But for me personally, just to set myself up a tour, for me to go on the road, I did that last year and it cost me like $2,000 that I lost, right? Because unless you're getting paid, which is really hard to do in music industry.
It's like the 1%.
Yeah, and that's usually cover artists. Right. So it's definitely impossible to, or not impossible, but you have to look at it in a totally different light as to be a successful musician nowadays. And then not to mention you're competing with AI music, which is, it is hard to tell the difference sometimes. I fell in love with an artist recently, and I will admit this on camera. I fell in love with an artist recently and found out it was AI and was like, I'm heartbroken because this is such good music, but he uses AI elements that I've stopped listening to it. Right? Because I can't, as a musician, I can't fully appreciate that. Right. Like, I know how hard it is to write music, but if you're using elements, so it's like, do you ever think that that's going to happen with your industry? Do you think you're ever going to have to fight with it?
Actually, I thought I was safe in the ceramics world. I'm like, no, I'm good. I stumbled upon a maker a while ago, and beautiful work. These ceramic lampshades, really intricate, beautiful designs. And then she showed her studio. I can't remember. I can't quote who the artist was. I think she was in New Zealand or Australia. But then she showed her studio, and her studio was about a dozen 3D printers. And the 3D printers were printing the designs that she was designing on her computer with AI. So it was an AI design, 3D printed ceramic sculpture. And she was pumping them out. Like all 12 of those machines were busy whirring away, making these products, selling them for a fraction of what I would be able to. And I'm like, is that art or not?
Right. That's where it becomes kind of difficult, and I think that's why I like this show, when you get to look past just the basic questions and you have two creative minds thinking about creativity and what the industries are changing to. It kind of sparks a lot of thoughts that most people don't genuinely think about, because they're not on that level, right? They're not having to deal with the front lines.
You don't think about it when you're just out consuming music. You know, you put on your playlist or whatever. Like the algorithm is one thing, but AI is a whole new beast, right? Like, but most people don't think about it unless you've been involved somehow, actively engaging with it. You don't think about it. You're just like, oh, this is cool. I have access to more, and we've been led to believe that access to more is always good.
Yeah.
And convenience is better than inconvenience. So
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that people are 3D printing ceramics.
right,
That's not something I thought that was possible.
me neither.
Is she 3D printing the molds or like the actual pieces
The
of
actual
ceramics?
pieces, yeah.
How do they get it to be ceramic though? Because it's the filaments, isn't it? Plastic?
I am not sure.
That's where I'm like, how did she come?
I couldn't
to
finish
terms with
watching,
that?
to be honest.
Yeah, no, like that's, to me, is like, that's mind blowing. That it's a scary concept that that's where the art industry is inevitably going to end up.
Is it inevitable?
I think so, but I think it'll be for a small portion of time. Just like music, right now there's a
Right.
huge push towards like AI music and everyone's against it, but then once you hear it and you realize, oh, it's the same as that one, same as that one, same as that one, they all sound the same, you start to realize like you can't replicate human creativity.
No.
As much as you'd like to, you cannot do it.
Right.
You can put words into a computer and have it pump out that, but there's something different about the way a human sings it and the way a computer sings it.
Right.
And you cannot kill that human drive. And I think that's where it's like we're going to see a huge rise in AI over the next 5 years in every respective industry that is art, but then all of a sudden there's going to be just like a crumble. It's going to fail and it's going to fall in on itself because it's not replicating what humans can. So like everyone's going to have to battle it at one point soon. Music has been dealing with it for a while. Film has been dealing with it for a while. It's kind of scary to see that ceramics is starting to deal with it too, because that's one I thought would never, like, that is primal to me, like I said, right? Like that's one I thought we would never be able to lose to a computer.
Right.
So
I think that's an anomaly. I don't think that's going to take off because I teach as well, and there is that hunger for people want to do something with their hands. You can't get rid of that. You can't squelch that part of the human spirit. So they're always looking. We are always looking for something to do with our hands. And I think the more time we spend, in the screen world and online and living virtually, the more that desire is going to actually come out. And I think the culture of handmade and is, I don't know if it'll take 5 whole years. I hope not.
I hope not too.
Yeah.
I just have this weird feeling that it's going to be like a weird chunk of time that's people are like, oh yeah, this is convenient and easy, and then all of a sudden everyone's got the same thing and no one wants it. And it's like,
because it's the ultimate gentrification of humanity. It's just, there's nothing new being created out of it, right? So it's just an amalgamation of what's already happened. And as much as when we're making things, we do emulate the people that came before us, even in our attempts at emulating it, we create something that is unique. I have yet to see anything that AI makes that is unique. Right?
Yeah, that is one thing that I 100% agree with you, is that it's not gonna replace us. And I find that being the person, like you said, you teach, I think that is a very valuable position to be in this day and age, is the person who can teach that knowledge on, because that's what we're lacking. Like we've spoke with a bunch of Indigenous artists recently and talking about like the stories that they're trying to tell, but there's only specific stories they're allowed to tell. And it's like, you get to be that storyteller to this new generation of people who are picking up ceramics, and like you get to guide their hand into like the right direction, which is, to me, is like, that is our whole point as being creatives. It's our duty is to inspire the next generation and guide them to be that. And it's like, how do we go about that in a proper way nowadays, where like a lot of the younger generation I find is more in tune to being natural, using their hands, and being less technology based. Like there's a younger group that just wants that classic that old school feel. And that's where there's a section that just like, how do we get to them? That is all for the AI right now, right? Like they're like, oh, AI.
Well, they're born into it.
They're born into it,
right?
exactly. Like, so it's how do you
don't know what that's going
teach
to
them?
look like.
Yeah, and that's what scares me, is like, what is the next 20 years of the arts industry is going to look like now that this Pandora has been let out, right? Because we ourselves are these creative, I don't want to say geniuses, but like that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Your creative genius is creating something that should last and transcend through the ages. Kind of like how we look at Greek pottery. Like you're making today's modern pottery.
Right.
Like who's to say that in 200 years, when we're all gone, if we're gone, they're not going to find a piece of yours and be like, this is what we were making, guys. This is history.
In case of nuclear winter, the survivors are going to be ceramics and cockroaches. I read that somewhere. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like even when you're looking at ancient history, like what are we finding?
Right.
We don't find their musicians. We don't know any of their music.
Right.
None of us know a single song from Rome, but we know everything of their history because it was written on their art.
Yeah.
Right. So getting to be those artists for modern day is kind of I always say this, it's like such a unique blessing, but it's also such a terrible position to be put in, because it's like, we're in a weird time, and art has always been the thing that pushes change. And that's what I really love about artists, is we're the ones who have always, like, every big revolution in time has been led by music, led by art, led by creative people. And we're at that point right now where we get to change what the future could be through our respective mediums. So like when you're teaching, I find that beautiful. Like there's something about a teacher that I absolutely admire, because to give education and knowledge away it needs to be more. Like too many people out there right now being like, oh, pay me $10 an hour, or subscribe to me and I'll give you all this knowledge. It's like, just give the knowledge, bro. Knowledge is free. You don't need to charge people out like for it. So when you're teaching, do you find that you have a younger crowd, or are they relatively like my age and up?
It's pretty middle-aged would be the predominant, but there's always a pretty good range. There's usually one or two that are in their 20s, and then a few that are in their 60s or 70s, and the majority in the middle is just in the middle.
See, I love that, because you have both. So you have the whole spectrum, right?
Right.
It's just, you definitely find that our age bracket, at like the middle-aged 30s to 50s, are the ones who are, I think it's because we're in a position in our life where we're at mentally, that we're like, oh, we need something artistic to do. As with the younger crowds, like they're just fed everything. They've got so much things flying at them that it's hard for them to even focus on, oh, I saw that was cool. I saw that was cool. I saw that was cool. And it's like, are they overstimulated to the point where they can't actually figure out a form that they like?
It's a good question. I have an 8-year-old nephew, and I ask sometimes, I'm like, like how many different camps are you going to this summer, right? Like he has a lot of experience. I think that's in one hand it's fantastic, like to be exposed to so many different things, and he comes out of them and he's learning new things and finding new things to be excited about. But I do also get a sense that maybe it's a bit overwhelming. Is any of it going to stick? Is it going to become, you just get used to having access to everything? I'm not sure. Yeah,
that's kind of where I was like, it's because we live in such a time where it's like, are we?
Well, we're not bored anymore.
No,
right?
like there's so much.
We're anxious,
yeah,
more so than ever, but we're not bored anymore. And I don't think that's a good thing.
No,
because out of that boredom, and you're sitting around poking a stick in dirt. Man, I'm bored. I'm so bored, and all of a sudden the stick in the dirt becomes like a shape you find interesting, and then so all of a sudden you're making art, right? Like, and if you're never bored, you never get to that place, right?
I think it's a massively valuable statement that I have not heard yet. Is that we're not bored anymore. Right. I think we need to be bored.
Yeah.
I think people need to. That is no, I don't think you could beat that statement.
We have to be stimulated all the time, and I'm as bad for it as anybody. Like on the phone all the time, just or whatever. If I'm not doing something, if I have 5 minutes, it's not time to just sit or be. It's time to scroll. Or whatever, right?
No, I'm super guilty for that.
I think we all are. I think in general, it's like it's as ubiquitous as drinking coffee. I think.
Yep.
Probably more so actually these days. Yeah.
To this day, what's been one of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
In general, creatively?
Yeah.
I think the first like full length record that I made, working with a producer and working with a vocal coach, and like going to go live at a studio for a week and watch my little songs become something bigger than I could have imagined. I think that to this day is my favorite project that I've been a part of.
I love that feeling.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that one too, because
Right.
it is something magical about finally seeing it finished.
Right.
Mm.
I was a day late, so they had the session. People had worked on one track already, so I showed up at like 3 a.m. the day late, and they played this track, and it was like all I had ever heard for that song was me and my voice and my guitar, right? But they put the whole band together, and I was just, the first time I'd heard that was pretty mind blowing.
That feeling is amazing. Do you get that same sense of accomplishment with pieces that you work on?
In pottery?
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah. Like, so this new glaze, I've been trying to find a new glaze that I like for a very long time.
These Raven ones?
Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love
so when that came out and the tests started coming in positive, it was fitting with the clay. It was behaving like I wanted it to in the kiln. It opened up design potential for this new Corvid collection that I'm working on. That felt really good because it was a long process of figuring out how to get this glaze to work. So that gave me a sense of satisfaction, maybe not quite as intensely visceral. It's spread out over a longer period of time, I think.
Yeah, because with music it's, and then all of a
Right.
sudden it's mixed, mastered, here's the project, it's finished.
Yeah.
Where this is like, there's like days in between these projects,
Weeks.
right?
Yeah,
exactly,
months.
right? So like,
Yeah.
does that become challenging because they're so used to being able to blast something out quickly that waiting game, does that bother you?
Well, that's like one of the biggest teachers in ceramics is patience, right? The second you start to feel rushed, you're done. Like, stop. Just don't even bother. I tell it to all my students too. I'm like, if you're feeling like the clock is ticking, you just stop. You're gonna waste your time if you keep pushing it, because patience is ultimately the best tool for working in ceramics. Like, you can't rush any aspect of if you get it in the kiln too soon and it goes in wet, you start blowing pieces up in the kiln. And if you try to glaze too quick and you don't pay attention to that little 2 millimeter line at the bottom, all of a sudden all your pots are stuck to the shelves, right? Like, patience is the ultimate teacher in ceramics for sure.
Yeah, I would be terrible at it. Time is my worst enemy.
Yeah.
And everything in my lifetime is my worst enemy because I think it's because I'm at that halfway point in life where I'm like, I gotta get it done. I'm like, just turned 36 and I'm like, I'm not where I want to be. But then I look back and take 2 steps back and I'm like, I'm further than I ever have been.
Dude, 36, you haven't even started yet.
No, right? And I'm like, even now, like I look back at what I've actually accomplished in 36 years and it actually kind of blows my mind because I'm always pushing that barrier. Like, what's next? I gotta accomplish something. I never take that 2 seconds to like,
Right.
this is what I've done. It's kind of cool. And like, even now, I'm speaking with you. 5 years ago, I would not have thought I'd be speaking with creatives as a job, right? So it's like the world changes so quickly, and as you have to adapt as an artist, that it's like keeps you on your toes.
Right.
So
I recently found a list of goals in the back of a journal from like maybe 15 years ago that I'd never gone back to. I hadn't looked at in 15 years. And I was like, oh, I did that. I did that too. I did that and that. Like, there was a bunch of I surely didn't get the whole list, but there was a good chunk of that list. I was like, I actually did those things. So like, yeah, write it down.
I like that.
Yeah.
How does that feel to like know that like 15 years ago you had these goals for yourself, and without knowing, you subconsciously ended up doing them anyways?
That felt pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing better than I think I'm doing most days. Most days I think I'm flailing. But in the big picture, you know, you get those things done, and maybe you're too busy working on the next thing to stop and recognize the wins. Yeah.
Yep. I think that is probably one of the biggest downfalls for any of us who are creative, is that we're constantly focused on the next thing, that we don't remember what we just did.
Totally.
Or we don't appreciate, like, take that 2 seconds for ourselves to embrace, like, hey, I accomplished this. Such because a lot of creatives come from like detrimental backgrounds or like hard upbringings where it's like they're trying to build themselves that future that they never had. And that's where I love creative people, because
We're all processing trauma.
yeah, and that's the thing is like it, and that creates this awe that people fall in love with, and they look at your work and they're like, oh, it's so beautiful, and you're like, if you only knew what had to happen for that cup to be made.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll never fully understand that, but they'll love that cup.
Right.
And they don't need to understand the backstory. They just need to understand that this final product is something you can enjoy
Right.
for forever, as long as you don't break it. Because
Right.
that's the thing about ceramics, right? Is
It's a whole nother kind of heartbreak.
like you brought up a point about putting it into the kiln too soon to explode. Not something I thought. If it's too wet, it's going to explode.
Right.
How does that happen? Is just the moisture, the piece itself, it just like,
Yeah,
as it expands, the heat?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Such a weird concept to think about, because how they're in there at a really high temperature too for the glaze to.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it was. Molly was saying it was something like
2200 degrees.
yeah, like insanely hot, and it's like that is kind of a cool aspect, because realistically, your art form entails every element that there is:
For
air,
sure.
water, fire, and earth.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a. That's why I love ceramics, and I was very like always wanted to speak with a ceramics artist, because you have take a element from each of the elements and create these masterpieces that will last and last and last. That is a. I don't know what word fully describes that at the end of the day, other than magical.
It's funny. I'm just making dishes out of mud and putting them in a fire.
And that's what you think, right? But at the end of the day, I look at it, I'm like, the shapes that you use, like there's something specific about your style that I like versus a lot of the other people that I've seen online or when I'm out and about at farmers markets and things, right? I am drawn towards your darker themed stuff and your shapes. Because like a lot of people, like you said, the cauldron one, like your cauldrons, that to me is unique. Right. I love that. That separates from most other cups.
It is something that I love about ceramics, is that you could put 100 potters into a room and tell them all to make a simple cup. And every single one of those things is going to be a little bit different, right? And a lot of them are going to be a lot different. Mm-hmm. There's so many potential avenues of expression to go down with ceramics. It's endless amounts of learning.
I can imagine, yeah, and you're still learning, right? Because you're still trying to create different techniques and skills.
Constantly.
Yeah.
So you never get bored. Maybe is that a good thing?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're bored, right, then we enjoy things. But for me, it's like, how do you, like your ramen bowls? I didn't, like, logically, I should have made the connection between the holes, the sticks, the holder, right? But for me, it's like, when you first glance, it catches you off guard because it is something that is like, oh, I've never seen that before. Right. So it is really cool. The different glazes you work with quite a bit of different glazes now that I'm actually looking at it too. Do you have a favorite glaze that you choose to work with more or less?
Not really. Like, I love them all. And like I said before, the process of getting a glaze that I like, that is actually functional, is a really long, hard fought process for me. So when I get one that works, I love it. So I love them all. Like, if I don't think I could pick one that I use.
That's your favorite?
Yeah, no, they all have their place.
I love the way you go about glazing them too, because they're not like fully glazed. There's like angles to it and elements that kind of like your eye is drawn to it in different ways than just a solid piece that's glazed fully. And that's why I really like these new pieces that you're working on.
I love the medium of clay. I think that I want to showcase that as much as I can with the work. So as much exposed clay that I can, I will.
Because like when you're doing a vase, like I see the vase on the other side, that would be two pieces. The handle is separate, I guess.
The very far one there?
Yeah,
I
the one
attached
right
the handle there at the end. Yeah.
When you're attaching pieces like that, because the handle is going to be drying at a faster speed than the actual vase, how do you know when it's like, okay, now's the time they need to be attached?
That is an excellent observation, because if you try to attach a piece and say the handle is substantially drier than the piece you're attaching to, you have this difference in moisture content, and as it's shrinking, the piece that's already really dry isn't going to shrink as much. The piece that has more water in it is going to shrink more, and as it shrinks, you get cracks and fissures in the attachment. So that is one of the patience pieces that you have to try to get the handles that you're attaching to be as close to that same moisture content as the piece you're attaching it to. So you have to be very aware of where they're at in the drying process.
So you'll have to do the vase way ahead of time, and then right before you're about to put the vase in, because it's at that point, that's when you would attach, kind of a thing. Because the handle is going to dry way quicker.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'll throw the piece and it'll dry for a day, sometimes two, and then I'll make the handles and then trim the piece and attach the handle. And then if I'm suspicious that there's a big discrepancy, I'll maybe spritz a little water and cover them so that they get a chance to dry slowly.
Oh, okay, so there are techniques that you can to...
There are. And then some
mitigate that kind of a thing.
You show up to the studio and you look and you have a whole row of handles that have cracked and fallen off your pots. That happens too.
What do you do at that point?
Cry.
Yeah, because you can't put them on, right? Like you can't... Once the
that
larger
point,
piece is dried, it's
yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, it's always been such a mind-blowing art form for me, because it's not just like, oh, I don't just, put clay together, but it's like there's so much different elements and mathematical aspects, and like understanding your product and understanding time and your kiln and the clay itself. Different clays dry at different times. And
like I said, 13 years into this, I feel like I'm barely beginning. I still feel like a noob. Like the amount of things that I have to pay attention to and that I'm still learning, I feel like I'm very much beginning.
Which is mind-blowing for me, because like the skill set that you have is insane. Like you have some really well done pieces. So it's like where you're like super like hard on yourself. I'm like, you're a master of what you do already.
I wouldn't use that word lightly.
If you had any advice for a ceramic artist who was wanting to start and didn't know how to get into it, what advice would you give them?
Get down to your community art center. Start getting involved. Take some classes. The community that's like around community art centers is all. I always find it amazing, because they're people that want to be connected with people. They want to connect people with ways of expressing and making art. So the people that you're going to find at those places are the gems in our world, I think. So they have so much to share, and the space is there. And because to just jump into ceramics on your own would be an incredibly overwhelming experience. Just, like 7 years at the Community Arts Center in Vernon, I didn't realize how lucky I was to have a studio technician who could take care of the firing and the mixing of the glazes. As soon as I started doing that on my own, I was like, oh, that person that I kind of took for granted is an incredibly valuable aspect of that experience. So I would say get down to your community center and take a class and meet some people, ask questions. Potters are, I found, really open for the most part about sharing process. Way better than musicians. Not gonna lie.
Yep, we keep our secrets to ourselves.
I was surprised about that when I was starting out with music. A lot of people that I thought would be open to sharing were not, and there were a few gems that were really fantastic. But with the potters that I meet, we want to talk about what we do. We love this, right? So, and we're not, there's not a lot of gatekeepers, at least not that I've met. You know, like, you have a question about the glaze or about technique, like, yeah, I want to talk about that. Let's talk. So,
Well, I want to thank you for your time, Will. This has been
Yeah.
incredibly great to sit down and like
pleasure.
watch your brain fire, because I know you're kind of worried about talking on it, but like once you get going, you can see the passion behind your eyes, and it's like that right there, that passion is what inspires me to want to continue doing what I do, right? Because it's just seeing the passion that creatives have. It just fires me to be like, I want to do ceramics now. I want to do painting. So like, I want to thank you for your time and your story.
Thanks for coming.
No worries. If you would like to be a guest on the show, there will be a QR code at the bottom of the screen that you can scan. It'll take you to a form to fill out, and we'll be in contact with you. I'm Robb O'Day, and from everyone at TELUS STORYHIVE, I want to thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.